And we're live.
Broadcast is live.
We are.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good day, good whatever. Um, we're tinkering with new technology today for our Unthunk, and
It's
I'm
really
as bad as you. Unplugged Health Series podcast. Um, he's Ollie Matthews. I'm Roger Wood. Welcome. And yeah, we find ourselves new technology in the new year. And we were just talking before starting the podcast of, in classic unplugged terms, of where we're going forwards with our podcast today, Ollie. And it is truly, as always, unplugged. I was reflecting that today for me has been a bit of a funk day. You know, it's always a case of people think we kind of come onto podcasts and we come on do lectures and lay lectures, and we're going to come across as, you know, we've always got to be on top of things and motivational, and we've got it all sussed. But yeah, today was just one of those grey January UK days, uh, rainy, and motivation for me was a bit low today. Still got some things done, but not quite turned out to the day. The day hasn't ticked off as many to do off the to do list, but that's okay. We also had some chill out time. What have you been up to, Oz?
I had a bit of a low one this morning with regards to like the roller coaster of lockdown, but um, yeah, like, I've had the conversation of what have you been up to, and everyone's like, "Oh, I've just been at home, not really
Yeah,
done much." So went to see a client earlier. I need to get in the center of the screen. Yeah, went to see a client earlier. Um, Obviously, that was good because you get out of the house, but I think it's appreciating at the moment, like the actual exercise and getting out of the house more. So
yeah,
I think that's something which I'm having to make sure I stay on top of here through lockdown. Is that it could be easy. I mean, I've got my bike there. That it could be easy to just do the biking. I've started running a lot more, as you saw from the adjustment I had yesterday. And you're like, hang on, you've been running away from someone again.
yeah,
Um, and I think like it's appreciating that time that I've also been doing a lot of stuff on Clubhouse. So there's a new app called Clubhouse that's going around where it's iPhone only and it's voice chat and connecting with a lot of people there. I've got involved with a lot of musicians there. Like reconnected with one of my clients um, on there and being in his room, and he's a guy that launched Taylor Swift's career, so he was her first manager. So he's got a lot of connections in the music industry, and I've been like for the last year, as you know, like how much I love music, and the last year I've been producing music again and getting involved with that, and I've just been manifesting to actually get some work to video edit and to do music alongside the health side, and it's finally getting some people on board. So I've actually got my first client today.
cool.
I say my first client. One of my mentors now. We're going to do some editing work for his videos, so which is a good thing. And then the health side of things as well. I've been working really loads on my own health. I think it's important that, as we say, to practice what we preach, and like making sure that I can't pour from an empty cup, and really working on my brain health, brain endurance, getting rid of brain fog, getting my sleep optimized. I've got my Aura ring now, so I can track everything like the geek that I am. So it's been a bit of a crazy one, but yeah, I think this is the first one we've done this year, right?
Yeah,
We've
yeah, and it's the classic one is what you how you describing things. There is we're actually kind of slightly poles apart with our from a business sense because I'm still able to see, although all dressed up in plastic, face to face clients.
yeah,
So my day is actually drawn out and is longer. I can't see people in the same flow, so I have longer days with slightly less business. So like today with being a bit of a slow day and being a bit of funk, it's actually quite nice in a strange because it's just connecting with your body and saying, you know, there's no use pushing myself today. Business is busy, it's long, and I'm very grateful for that from a business sense. So it was actually quite nice. My wife and I just chilled out. We watched a bit of TV. As I said, I did a few chores, but it's actually quite nice just to slow down. So today for me it was really a day off. Whereas a lot of people at the moment they've got lots of days off and they're trying to fill time. So so it was actually quite interesting in hearing you talk about filling it and using time to your time wisely. Whereas I was actually quite happy today to let time just drag by. I was a bit of a teenager today, so I was quite good at just letting time drift by.
I think like
I wouldn't want to do it every day.
Yeah, we can be so busy and full up, and I think like I've been pushing more like to make up for the way COVID hit my business, and I've been pushing more to get my productivity up and to get my output going. So working on inflammation in the brain and my knowledge there, and as I said to you, like I'm fully licensed health practitioner now, so which is my knowledge is exactly the same. It's just like I've got the piece of paper that says it, which is a cool thing. But like we can be too busy as well, and we have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And I put that post out about at what point does your health stop becoming a chore and become a priority. I think you had a really great comment on that. And I think that we do have to make sure that even though we might have that capacity to push with our business, to push with our lives and to be busy, that we don't rely on that, because that's when we start burning out. So I've had like 7 or 8 calls on Monday and then 7 or 8 calls yesterday. Plus there was like the appointment with you in the middle. So my adjustment there, which is a good thing to help me recharge. But if I do that every single day, just because my brain will let me do that, eventually I'll burn out. So prevention always beats the cure, right?
Yeah, and in working in healthcare, as both you and I do, and you position yourself to give, and that gives us energy. It gives us that's why part of the reason why we do what we do. We like they're there to serve and help. But with giving energy, you're losing energy, and you need stuff to balance. So that's why burnout and the mental health side of things from healthcare practitioners is rife. I mean, it's really a big issue. Yep. Because there's also this guilt element is that I'm here to serve, I'm here to help. That's what we do. And so we're always very keen to step forwards and be of service. But sometimes feel a bit guilty to step back and say, well, actually, to do that today, I need to nurture myself. It's something that I've got better at as I've been in practice a number of years now. But when I first started off, it was always a case of I've got to be there for everyone, and you just can't keep up that pace. So it's a strange one at the moment, because in the concept in the UK of lockdown, and some people either working from home and trying to juggle that, or kids at home. So some people's stress levels have gone through the roof, whilst other people are kind of furloughed and trying to find time. So not everyone's in the same boat. So it is a case of just being connected with energy, I think, of what the body tells you. The other thing, as I stretch down, is what also you do in lockdown is you end up getting a puppy.
Oh, you kept that quiet.
I came home the other day from work to this little one at home. We had spoken a bit about having another dog, but my wife, true to form, didn't inform me during the day that she got one.
Oh,
so if you hear a little squeal, you know what. So I've now got big brownie points with anyone watching this podcast for this little fella. So this is Mabel. So this has also kept up a lot of time and energy. So when we say time off and time out, it's not quite as straightforward as that.
Yeah, I definitely like it's been a bit of a juggle as well. Like the schedule, I think the schedule is a big thing with a lot of people, and like by now, in the horrible way, it's normal. I hate saying that it's normal for most people to be working from home. So you think we're getting used to it, but in reality, like it is still that schedule which is so blurred. It's like Groundhog Day over and over again. I just spoke to one of my mates, and we were talking about my website. So you know who he is anyway. But we were saying about he's like, yeah, the weekend is just I don't clock on to work. It's exactly the same. I just don't clock on. And we were saying I can't wait to have a busy weekend again. And yes, like there's busy from like decorating or childcare or eventually gardening or walking the dogs and things like that, but not the general busyness that we usually have. It's kind of like you're doing things because they're there, which you wouldn't necessarily normally do. And it's a frustration.
And I think this time of year, also a lot of people generally will have a bit of a a scan up ahead, thinking this is what I'm generally going to do for the year. I look forward to this. I want to go away here, and at the moment it's all on pause, and also it is a bit of Groundhog Day. We're trying to fill time. We lost that spontaneity, that element of. It's not a case that we could go for a meal, or that we should be going for a meal or plan to have it. It's just that you could say to your wife, let's go out for a walk, and as you go for a walk, say, you know what, I'm not cooking tonight. Let's go for a meal, and you could go straight there. It's just that spontaneity and that feeling of we're back a bit on Groundhog Day, but that'll change, and we'll have to adapt again. So it's just trying to find the opportunity, but also, as I said, my field today is not also persecute us. And some days, what I'm calling is, I think everyone at some stage relates to the 2 to 3 year old tantrum. Those I just have had them fed up. I don't want to do this anymore. That almost like I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I don't want to play anymore. And then when you realize that settles down, you say, like, actually, there's nothing else I can do about it. So what can I do, or what do I want to do? There's loads to do. It's all relative. We're all right. We've got food, shelter, and everything on the basics. We just don't have that spontaneity.
Well, that's one of the, when we look at actual, like, I can't even think of the word I'm looking for with this. Like, not meaning of life, but like one of the human needs as such.
I mean, I think the big human need, not necessarily thinking exactly on your line, but the big human need at the moment is really is purpose and routine and all that. I read an article earlier. See, this is what happens. You think that you have a funk day, and then when you stop and realize that you actually did do quite a bit.
Yeah.
There was talking about really the element of control. It was a person or a colleague who I follow through functional medicine. She's a neuropsychologist by trade, so she's very interested at the moment with the mental health side of things, and she was talking really about the elements of control. And once you start focusing on how out of control you are and you lose control, it changes huge chemistry in the brain, and just reinforces all those. We know it reinforces anxiety and stress and all the other things, and feeds in. So it is a case of that basic need of having purpose and having control, having focus. And that element of keeping control actually can still be today. You know what, today I'm not feeling on top of it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not going to push myself. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to have guilt. I don't feel it. I connect to what my needs are, and I'm having an easy day. That's okay.
Yeah, it's riding the wave. Like so many of us beat ourselves up when we are feeling low. It then makes it worse, and there's usually a reason for it. Whether it's a reaction to food, whether it's a poor night's sleep. Last night we had so we have a mental health support group where because like with the guidelines you're allowed up to 15 people as long as it's not in a private home, for as long as it's a mental health group. So actually it's organized. So we were there, and I think we got out about 10:15, 10:30. So there was like 3 hours. Although we were, I say, in a boxing ring, there was like 5 or 6 of us, and we were spread out in the boxing ring because that was where in a friend's place. So we were all just sitting down. You don't realize how bloody cold you were because there's no heating on, like in this warehouse building, and how that then impacts your sleep. So yeah. I had a bad morning this morning that. In theory, I was recovered, but in reality, like I was feeling a bit more anxious. I was feeling a bit more that I'd lost control, which is like control has been taken from a lot of us right now.
Yeah,
and I hate being told what to do. I absolutely hate it. Hence why, that, as we know, we've had so many conversations over the last year with regard to what's going on, and but there's always a reason for it. And if we look back, take this step back, maybe you've spent, I don't know, maybe it's a Sunday morning and the Saturday night you had a takeaway, which you've had a reaction to some of the food in there. Or you then stayed up a little bit later and your blood glucose is off, you had some alcohol, all these different things. And it's easy after the situation, but when you're actually sitting in that situation, to actually think about what it is and then accept it is pretty hard.
Yeah, and I think that is the key, though, is to have that peace of mind and take a step back and have an appreciation of what's going on. You know, the lovely word which comes up with a lot of patients is should. You know, I should be doing this. My day off, I should be exercising. I should be doing this. But if you don't have the energy, if you, as you say, you had poor night's sleep. So I understand for me exactly why I'm feeling a funk today, because we're in the process of, you know, serving our patients. We're also in the process of decluttering our office because imminently we're looking to sign a contract and then move premises. And that's all happening within lockdown, where you're dealing with councils and agents who everyone's working remotely in 3-day weeks and that. So it is very frustrating and time consuming. So the thing is that I've done. You were talking about the bike. You know, this time of year I'm not really that motivated to get out on the roads. We've had icy roads and that.
Yeah.
So I've been really enjoying and hitting spin classes on my bike, on my spin bike, and really enjoying it. So and that's what one of the things I would allocate on a Thursday. Today be my day off to do in the afternoon around lunchtime. But we watch TV instead because I just didn't have the energy for it. Now, you could also gain and say sometimes you can push yourself. But I knew today that if I pushed itself, I'm just going to drive myself to be more exhausted. So it is a case of sometimes resisting and saying, well, I know I should do this. There's no should. It's just like this is what you need to do or not need to do, and look after yourself and nurture yourself.
I definitely think we need to have more downtime. So a lot of us, especially when you've got your own business and you're the person in control of moving that forward, and like you've got like the amount of days you work, and then like scheduling in time for yourself or family time, those sorts of things.
Yeah, you have to, because if you're going to run a schedule, I've got this little nipper nipping my toes. If you're going to schedule patients and schedule time to give to other people, you know, I know busy businessmen and that who schedule, you know, a massage, schedule, you know, my appointments. They see me on a certain time each week or every, you know, once a month or whatever it is. They schedule everything else, but they also schedule themselves. I mean, if you schedule a holiday for your family, why not schedule your gym time or your exercise time or schedule some morning time?
Yeah, I always do with mine. Like my morning routine is non-negotiable. In fact, I went on a podcast.
Yeah, I know that. I know when we've tried to hook something up, you're very good, and I like that. You said, "Well, no, I can't do it this morning." I encourage patients to say, "I've already got a pre-arranged. You know, I've got a commitment."
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think
people are happy to hear that you've got a commitment to see someone else or do that. They don't need to know
when
that
you
their
say
commitment.
yourself, yeah,
Yeah, quite
I've said
right.
to people before, like clients who have got their boss, like, and they're scheduling meetings in, and like, just say you've got an important meeting, because it is the most important meeting you'll have, the time for you to recharge. And a lot of people, like, some people see it as selfish because we want to be there to serve others. We want to be there to help others, and it might be family or friends or whatever it is. But then we can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
And
And if you say that element of have an important meeting or I have an important engagement, you are giving also importance to yourself rather than where you're thinking, and you're not, you know, you're not telling a porky. You have got a very important meeting.
yeah, it is definitely like I think like, yeah, when we look at what's non-negotiable, it's setting things up. So when I look at my morning, and I've been guilty about going into the evening a bit more. Like I normally want to switch off by 7 p.m., but then I've been working till like 8:30. It's cool for like I have a group program which I'm doing, and that's on a Monday night, which is cool. But then like the other nights is just I've realized that I've got something tonight till 8. Last night was the Bro Society thing. There was Tuesday till 8:15, Monday till like 8:15. Before you know it, like the whole week's been like that. So yeah, it might not be the most ideal thing, but if I do it every single week in, week out, I've got to make sure I stay true, because before you know it, you burn out. Like you have, is it a Tuesday you work late?
Yeah.
But then you make sure that the other nights you cut off at the right time. You have your Thursday off.
I try to.
Yeah.
My challenge is that it's not. I'm the opposite. Is that at night, then if there's something that can be done without disrupting family and that, and then with work, it has to be done later. So I have to watch hugely what time I have a fairly I've got fairly good through the years of having a wind down pattern towards bed. So
Yeah.
I've got to make sure, watch out for the second wind, and I get hooked into something, work or study or reading related, and then now it's too late. So yeah, Tuesday is my late night, but it's actually my toughest one to work on because I come home and my brain's got to unwind, and if I get hooked into something so I get home after patients and clearing out and cashing up, I probably get home just before 10.
Yeah.
So if I'm not careful, I could quite easily drift to 1 o'clock. Now I can function the next day all right on a short sleep, but it's the cumulative over the next day. So I hit the weekend and I'm knackered.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, well, that's your time out, but now you're knackered just because of one night. It snowballs. So
We
I've focused a lot on sleep since we've been talking, and over since Christmas I had 5 days off, and I slept really. I focused on sleep a lot, and I really came back in the new year feeling the benefit. And I have to watch because the old habits keep in.
So I think with that, I remember working in the as a fitness instructor. So you do the shift work, and so you might have an early where you're getting up at like 5 a.m. to be there for 6, finish at 2 or whatever it was. But those late shifts when it was like 10:30 finish, by the time you get home, it isn't just switch off. You have to sit there and kind of like wind down again because you've had blue
Yeah,
light and false light in there. Then you've got the drive home where you have to be stimulated because you don't really want to fall asleep at the wheel. It's literally like you have to have that stimulation and be wide awake. So then you get home and there's like probably like an hour or 2 hours of having to wind down and switch
yeah,
off. Especially if you've had like a stressful, like if I had a client that was late, that was quite stressful, or you've had a patient which is stressful, like before you know it, like that just keeps you wired for the rest of the night.
yeah. And I find I have to have a bit of a wind down. It's like someone coming home traditionally, I don't know, finishing work at 5 and getting home for 6, and then saying, right, you've got to go to bed in half an hour. It's tough. You're just very hard to do that. So I've got try to get better at that. Do stuff on the other days so that there's less pressure on that on the later night to do or catch up or send emails or anything. Personal stuff. Around a Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, I've got better of planning and knowing my weekly routine rather than just thinking on the daily routine.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that a lot with patients at the moment with working from home. You've got some patients when some people's headspace is spot on to the degree that they feel they've gained time in the day because of they're not traveling. So I've got some who do yoga in the morning or take the dog for a walk, or they get up earlier and have a relaxing start to the day so they're ready for work. And then I've got others who are kind of like, it's great because it's another 20 minutes, half an hour. And then 5 to 9, I can get out of bed and log onto the computer. And they drift through and they can do bits and pieces. And then their day, is all over the place. And then they're saying, well, I'm not really doing much work, physical exercise, and that you can't go anywhere. And they're really paying the price because they've gone totally with no routine.
Yeah.
There's 6 hours of work, 7 hours of work is stretched over probably 14 hours. And they still think they've got no time in the day because they're working from home.
You end up not leaving the house as well. And I
Yeah.
know days where if it's been absolutely chucking it down and I haven't walked the dog, then I've been like, it's got to 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and I'm like, I've got to go out right now. And like, you forget how much leaving the house actually means.
Yeah.
And I think that's underrated. Like, if people are feeling very low, if people are feeling kind of very out of whack, just remembering to go for a walk. Like you're allowed to leave the house for exercise. And like when we say like you shouldn't just be leaving the guidelines when they're saying that you shouldn't leave the house, like all that sort of stuff. But I can't remember the last time I have left the house in like technically it sounds weird in an illegal way. Like
Yeah.
as I say, when I'm like, well, If I'm going for a walk around the block, that's exercise. Or I'm walking the dogs, or I'm going to an appointment, or I'm going shopping. Like these are all things that are actually allowed. So when people like say like we can't go out and do exercise, like, it's totally allowed. I
No,
think
no,
we
you
yeah,
can, and you must, and I even tend to think of, obviously it applies to where you are and where you live, but you and I are fortunate is that relatively quickly you can find some green space in your local area, and if it's if it's accessible.
mhm.
It's just this time of year you probably got to make sure we've had it, but you and I are fortunate to have dogs. So the dog actually says, right, we need to take the dog for a walk. So you get waterproofs on and you go. And then you think, oh, this is the last thing I feel like doing. But, come back half an hour later and you feel the benefit from it. And it reminds us that actually when people talk about exercise, it doesn't have to be that you have to pound yourself and, build up a massive sweat and nail yourself in a high intensity stuff. Exercise is movement, and it's the movement that stimulates the endorphins and the feel good factors, and that's exactly what people need.
Yeah, and
So getting that on a regular basis is important.
some people
People mistake exercise that it has to be, a full on workout. It doesn't. It's movement. There's lots of people at the moment just sitting in front of a computer, then they sit and watch some TV or sit on social media. Then at lunchtime, they sit on the computer and then they sit and watch some TV and go to bed. And this time of year with the light in the UK, that's just a really really tough combination.
yeah, and I think like we have to realize how stressed we are. And a lot of people like it's hard to admit that.
Yeah,
Like when we're saying like exercise, that walking is exercise. Okay, like there are going to be benefits of getting your heart rate up, but how much can your actual body recover
yeah.
from getting your heart rate up even for just 30 seconds?
So I'll
So
tell you an interesting observation. When we came out, so we were closed down for pretty much March, April, May, and then we opened again in June last year. So and
yeah,
everyone had the benefit of the better weather. Everyone said their gardens, they've been doing up, they've been exercising, and it was a bit kind of looking back, it was a bit new and different of lockdown. And I noticed probably the first month, I would say 90% of my patients, 95% of my patients, and it could even argue close to 100%, that when we first checked people and we hadn't seen them for a couple of months, and they would say, no, I've coped fine, stress, and everything's fine. I'm on furlough, I've enjoyed it. We'd check them, they were all jammed up in the neck and mid back and around the shoulders because they were all carrying shoulders up to the ears, and then in that stressed, I'm about to fight a lion posture. And then we noticed that through the latter part of summer, towards September, October, that pattern was slowing down. It wasn't as obvious. Now we see it all again because we've just had Christmas and now new lockdown. Numbers are up, fear factors are up, everyone's worried. Vaccines are coming, but they slow in people's eyes because they'll never be quick enough. And that same pattern is, but you ask people, how are you coping? How stress levels? No, it's all right, I'm not that stressed. But their bodies are showing it. The physiology is showing it. Everyone.
some of it is ego.
Yeah, they're coping because they're surviving. They're not having a mental breakdown. That doesn't mean that their body is thriving. They're not. They are stressed.
Yeah, and I think some of us is like it's when people say, "How are we doing?" I'm okay. Are you really okay? Yeah,
Yeah, that's just the knee jerk natural
yeah.
response, especially for guys.
It's just
You know,
like, is it the same with like South Africans as well, or is it just a British thing?
no, it's South Africans as well, especially a guy thing.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
don't know.
when we say in South Africa the expression when we say hello is how's it? How's it? How is it? It's exactly the same as here where someone says hello.
Yeah,
And so it's how's it? The answer to that from a South African is to say how's it back. To say how's it, how's it. The person's not really interested in how it is. They're just saying hello. And the
yeah,
guys so like, I'm not here to offload my stresses. So it's classic, let's talk where's here be football, let's talk rugby, let's talk whatever. It's almost an escape for guys. They don't naturally, unless you've got your close knit your best buddy, you're closer, then you would say, listen, I need some help. But same here, same in South Africa. Yeah, there's a big pride, probably even bigger male ego.
Well, I find that we having this bro society thing is really good, and we do like one virtual, one in person, and you don't realize how much you got to talk about until you start talking. So we have a crystal that we pass around in the in person, and when you've got that crystal, it's your turn to talk. Talk about how your week has been, and everyone's there to listen. And it's not like listen and then give a chip in with how to fix that or anything. It's just listen. When you've got that item and you're holding that, you are just listening or you are just talking. And you don't realize until you start, then more comes out and more comes out and more comes out that, wow, actually, I have been quite stressed. Or like you feel good. Like I had a good one last night. And then there was something else that I was playing out on my mind and all these different things. And it soon adds up. So it is that talking thing, but how many people have we actually got to talk to? And I think it's searching out those people.
Yeah, and especially now. I mean, I heard of around Christmas of a good friend locally who's been unwell, but because we only see him socially at the golf club, also and not connect like through social media and work and Christmas, never knew. But if we're in our normal pre-COVID existence, I would have known within a week.
Yeah.
So we don't have that immediate contact. So we kind of got to either seek it out or have that more inner circle, close family support or close friend who does take the time out. And that. Do you with that group, not sounding that you you get pleasure that someone else is battling, but does it also give you comfort comfort the wrong word, that someone else is also having similar, either challenges or, because there's this big thing that, especially with social media, that everyone else is having sex, everyone else is having a good time, everyone else is eating good food. No one else. It's just us who are having this stress or something. And when you speak to anyone, I think especially if they're working and running a household and they've got financial challenges. I have a patient the other day and said that if it wasn't for extending or having mortgage holiday, she's a hairdresser. He runs a pub. So both of them are out of work. So if it wasn't for some savings, and then now he's picked up some furloughed work, but nowhere near what he owes. But at least they got some money in. But if it wasn't for mortgage holidays, they would be totally screwed.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that and I said, I'm not in that situation. That to me is that is major stress. But she's like, yeah, we're coping and that, but they're carrying that stress. I mean, it's not that she's not stressed. She was talking about how stressful it was, but it's all relative. I mean, and so when you hear someone else and think, it's like, yeah, everyone is in the same boat. And sometimes you do sit back and say, you know what, actually, I have got the means. I'm coping all right, but it's all right to say that I'm stressed. That this is tough.
Framing that it's not everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's in the same ocean. People have got different boats, but we're still swimming that same or fighting that same fight to get to a different
Yeah,
the
and
destination.
one person's stress is another's. One person's boat is made up and is solid and seaworthy. Another one's got broken oars, holes in it, and they're scooping water just to stay afloat.
And stress is a perception, right? So one person could go on a roller coaster and use it to chill out. And I've always said I ain't going on a roller coaster. I hate those things. So and it's going to stress me out a lot more than a lot of people. So I think definitely people have to put things into perspective. Like you might think that your stresses aren't a big thing, but they are to you. And
Yeah,
someone else is like, oh yeah, why am I moaning? I've got a roof over my head. We've got some money coming in, but you've got your kids and all this sort of stuff. But the things that are pushing you to be stressed, and it's acknowledging those things. And you think there's a couple of guys that have been to this place and they're like, oh, I haven't got the problems. I feel it's like first world problems. Yeah, but they are still things you're going through.
yeah,
And with me, my finance has been hit a bit, but I'm still earning more than I was when I worked in the corporate world in insurance as a manager. I'm still earning more, but my outgoings are more. So in reality, some people are earning nothing. But then who's actually most stressed about it? And then I think it's having that perspective and going back to where we were before. You can be so stressed out now. You need that time for yourself.
Yeah, and I think from a healthcare perspective, that it actually doesn't matter what the stress is. If the stress is enough to change your physiology, then that's enough to acknowledge it. So if it's changing how your appetite, if it's changing your sleep patterns, if it's changing hormonal levels. So I had a patient, stress was so much that for a woman her menstrual cycle had stopped. I mean, that's significant stuff. So it doesn't actually matter what the stress is. It matters perhaps to have the systems in place to try and deal with the stress and identify it. But the stress is enough that it's all relative, as you say, because if it changes physiology, now that's going to have an impact on your health. If not immediate, so some people, there's a badge of honor. I've had all the stress and I'm fine. I've been doing this for 2-3 years. It's like, yeah, but that's going to catch up with you sometime.
Yeah. And the same with sleep as well. I've been saying recently about sleep being one of the most important things. And it's probably the most important thing along with blood glucose management to make sure you're setting yourself up right for health. And that if people are saying, I'm good at 5 hours sleep, yeah, come back to me in 10 years' time with that.
Yeah.
Sure,
that's
okay.
been a big one. I mean, and I thank you for that, because it's only really through the podcast, and we did that thing of sleep, and through the functional medicine stuff, I looked more into it and suddenly looked and going, this is huge, and started asking patients more about their sleep patterns. It's rife. I don't think there's many people who can honestly say, I sleep well. I've looked at all the research. I've looked at other podcasts on sleep. It's rife. And the sleep isn't actually the problem. It's just a reflection of stress and how it messes up, cortisol, melatonin, and that, as we've spoken of. It's not just as long as I take a sleeping tablet, I get enough hours sleep. It's like there's some significant lifestyle issues and stress, and how we cope with stress. And the long-term effects of that are huge.
Yeah, and like people take a sleeping tablet and they think they're getting sleep, but they're getting 8 hours unconscious.
Yeah.
The body is that actually going through all the detoxification side of things and like cellular regeneration and actually helping you with hormonal balance and all this sort of stuff? Not really, because it's still going to be that stressful state which is stopping that. It just means that you're unconscious.
No, and it seems in the business world, they say that element is very much that. It's that go mentality. You can create an extra few hours by, going to sleep later. It's almost the productive hour is kind of 12 to 2 at night, and it's like that's your second win. You've now just stoked up your cortisols. Yeah, you're not going to go back to sleep, but
you look at the actual physiology of like, why is that your second
it's crazy.
win? You just blunted your melatonin and increased your cortisol.
Yeah, and the scary thing is the consequence of that is not imminent. So that's why people, they get away with it rather than that they're doing okay with it. I'm okay to survive on. I've had a patient who's like, I can survive on. I'm okay on 4 hours sleep. It's like one of the biggest traditional methods of torture was sleep deprivation. You you lose the plot if you don't sleep. But if you're doing it a little and often all the way through, it's just like a toxin. It's a slow poison. It's something's going to go bang down the line.
And I think it depends on what metrics you actually look at as doing okay. So I'm someone that tracks a lot of things, especially as I said, I got the Aura Ring, I got my Apple Watch. I can track heart rate variability. I can track my resting heart rate. I can track my body temperature. I can track my respiratory rate. I can track all these different things, my quality of sleep, what deep sleep and everything. I can track them to actually see that some days when I feel good, I feel okay, but my readings are off, like it just means I need to ease up a little bit to keep feeling good.
Yeah.
It's not say, oh, I feel good, so I'm just going to smash like a 10-mile run.
So do you use that information that like down the line you feel all right for the day, but the indicators are saying, listen, I'm heading towards fatigue here, so I'm still going to exercise, or I'm still going to do this, but this isn't the day to push it, or I've done that, my markers are looking, or my indicators are looking good, I feel good, so I'm up for I'm scheduled to do for you a run or a heavy workout or something, and you can go for it.
I use the information for that, and also if I've got a scheduled session and maybe I don't feel as good, but all the readings are on point, I'll go for that run. But I think, in all honesty, like, where I was in the past, that I would have pushed through even no matter what the reading said, which is a bad thing to do.
Yeah,
It's like
that's the point, is it? You've got the readings, you still got to either listen to them, taking them on board.
You got to have the accountability to do that, and I find that, like, that is what's needed, the accountability to use it. Like, it's only good having it if you're going to utilize it. And like, now I use it and listen to it.
Do you encourage clients to use the technology if they don't have it, to get it, or a lot of people have Apple Watches but don't use it?
If they've got the technology, I encourage people to use it to see what their output is like. Not necessarily to say you've put those calories out, or you've done those calories, you need to eat those calories. Like, there's going to be differentiation depending on what you're doing. But if we've got the technology there, you've got the Apple Watch. I think Fitbits do it as well. This is an Aura ring. Is like, there's the Whoop band as well. A Whoop band is it goes right around your wrist, but that's a subscription service. So it's like £25 or something a month, or £20 a month. But eventually that becomes more expensive than £300 up front. So it's like, if you've not got the money to go up front, you can get this technology very low price just to see where you're at. And then you get much more of a marker of what is actually happening. And then also, which has helped with a couple of clients, is that when they're struggling to not drink alcohol, they can see, because this will give a readiness score or a recovery score, and obviously your heart rate variability as well. You can see you might be in the green. You suddenly have that 1 or 2 glasses of wine, and you have them a little bit later, as we know how much alcohol impacts sleep. Bam, straight into red. And like, we can actually see what this is doing. So it gives such a good feedback, especially with people that are very statistically driven. They're very numerical, that they want to see in black and white what things are happening, because we can be very headstrong. Like, we know, we've both had patients that are very headstrong. Like, we'll just go through and do it no matter what. But if you're actually seeing, like, the recovery drop, you're seeing your heart rate variability drop, you see that you've had a bad night's sleep, we can link it to this stuff. And even like the wrong food, like, we had a reaction, so like, our readiness is lower. It takes a lot of the guesswork out for not that much of the cost.
Yeah, I can see that. And also like in our practice, we use the scanner, and so it's the patients love it. It's nice and visual. It gives feedback, but it also doesn't measure a symptom or doesn't measure pain. It measures it's an indicator how you function, and that's what I like what you're describing, because a lot of people will just be really more focused on this is how I feel. I feel okay. Like the sleep, I can survive. I can get through the day. But the stats and the information, it's a bit like someone saying, "Hey, I feel fine," and you take the blood pressure and say, "Listen, but your blood pressure is through the roof." Yeah, well, I feel okay. Don't. It's not how you feel; it's how you function. So they're looking at, when you start shifting and assessing and looking at from the functionality side. Some people can they can carry a little bit more weight, but functionally they can be a lot healthier than the person is killing themselves, not eating the right nutrition, is in an ideal weight band, but actually is sitting waiting for diabetes or heart disease or something, because they're screwing their body up.
I done for my female health reboot, I done the blood sugar talk on Monday, and it was just saying that, why do we see people that aren't overweight having diabetes? Because the amount of stress they're having. But also, like, there's this big thing about obesity at the moment, and how people are really, really overweight people getting ill because their immune function is low. But what about the people that are underweight? What about the people like myself, when I was competing in bodybuilding, really overtraining? Or even then going into 2015, when I was doing the weight training and the endurance work without having that rest. Like, not what I would tell clients to do. And obviously I follow my own advice now, but I had to learn from those lessons. Like, we see obese is unhealthy, but there's also extremely underweight, we know is very unhealthy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then we said like the extreme overtraining as well.
Yeah, the obese. I mean, the thing with obesity comes the general thing for the lifestyle elements associated with obesity. But there's some people who carry more weight, but their lifestyle and nutrition is good, and all their functional health markers are ideal. So for them just to look at weight or the BMI, which is a rubbish indicator of health, but the BMI, they say, right, now I've got to cut back calories, starve this, or overtrain to get into that BMI or the my height weight category. They become unhealthy. But we know that for a vast majority of obesity cases, the lifestyle is a big factor. So there's always that focus from a functional perspective on what's the lifestyle rather than just what it says on the scales. It's a poor indicator. You take a classic bodybuilder, can be carrying a huge amount of lean muscle mass and therefore carrying a lot more body weight. And then if they're short, they're going to suddenly have a really high BMI. Or you got the other element of someone who's really tall but is carrying a lot of weight. So the BMI or those indicators were all just set up for the insurance industries to cross section and reduce risk factors of policies.
Mm-hmm.
But the technology is now bringing the functionality of saying, listen, it's not just about what your blood pressure and what your weight is. Let's measure all these other indicators. And I think the interesting thing will come out post-COVID with this is that is the general society going to suddenly stop and go, you know what? What COVID has taught us is those people with underlying health issues are vulnerable. They're the ones who couldn't cope with that. There's some genetic variation. So there's some people who perceive that they didn't have any issues, but they may also have been some who didn't have any issues diagnosed. So they weren't aware that they had underlying heart disease or were pre-diabetic or so. But in a general sense, apart from the age factor, I wonder whether down the line we're going to get a sense that some people say, you know what, this is now woke me up. I'm pre-diabetic. I need to sort this out, or I'm doing it because those are the people who are already inflamed. They're already the ones who are preset, or the immune system's already struggling.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting dynamic, and I think technology will help us because we can then start and going forwards for me, I want to bring some of that into assessing patients when we do more the functional health stuff because it gives indicators where people can say, I feel fine. Say, great, but this is what our assessment suggests. So do we want to improve these indicators?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we should definitely do do a podcast on technology and how we can use it to our benefits. I definitely think we should do that. So,
well, and that's changing so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that you got the Aura Ring. I mean, at one stage, I don't know if you had to pre-order that for some time, but at one stage you couldn't get them. They were just.
Well, I was going to get one like a couple of years ago, but there was a 6-week waiting list. I don't want to wait 6 weeks, so I waited 2 years.
Yeah, I think at one stage there were about a 6 to 8 month wait list. I remember speaking to someone.
Definitely. So I grabbed one. Like it was a Christmas present. Like I paid some towards it, but part of it was a Christmas present. So it was good to have that. But I tried the whip band beforehand. I just didn't like because I wear my watch this side. I had the band this side, so I took these off, which I'm used to wearing, which are quite loose.
Yeah.
So the band was quite tight, and I just didn't like having two things that were quite tight. So I think it sounds like the readings were pretty similar, and I think the accuracy is pretty similar. So it's like, what do you prefer, having a ring or having the band? So yeah, we're gonna have to wrap it up there.
Yeah, I was just looking at, as always, unplugged means we don't know where we're going, but it always brings up some interesting things. So on behalf of both Ollie and I, thank you for your guys' time, and obviously we'll be putting things out and recording and going out also on our official podcasts, Podbeam, etc. So until next time, it's good night or goodbye, and thank you for your time from me, and we look forward to catching up next time.